Right, let's assume that we've got everyone. I'm going to assume we have. So if you can get your cameras on, if you can, that's fantastic. So we can do this a number of ways. I'm here at your disposal for you to talk about whatever you want to. I have got slides, so I can certainly present some stuff. I take a very data-driven, evidence-informed approach to my wellbeing. So we can have a look at some of that. But how about, first off, I ask you to tell me, when it comes to wellbeing and mental health of your employees, what's keeping you awake at night? What worries you? What's niggling you at the back of your head? And then I can contextualize what I say according to what you tell me. What's your biggest worry?
I'll go first.
Oh, on you go.
I was just gonna feel free.
Go on, Colleen, you go first.
No, I was just going to say, I think, so I work in a contact centre, and I think what we're starting to see is the uncertainty, because no one knows when we're going back to the office. So there's no date on everything's going to be okay and it's back to normal by this date. And I definitely think that that is starting to weigh on people a lot more. Where we did it in March last year, it was like, this is exciting, this is great, I've always wanted to work from home. And now it's like, right, okay, what next? Because I want the human interaction back.
Yeah, that's a biggie, uncertainty. Anybody else? Paul, do you want to offer something?
Yeah, so like obviously I'm not from a contact center, I'm from the Modular Analytics company. But we're in the same sort of situation because we're a fully remote business. So I think for us, probably the hard part is developing new starters. Because, you know, traditionally you'd have people, you start shadowing you, you'd be learning your role, be sat beside you, you'd have a lot of physical sort of time together in the same room, understanding what's going on. And now we're trying to, you know, we're bringing on board, it's not too bad if you've got somebody who's experienced, but when you've got graduates coming through and things like that, it's really tough to kind of get them to a level where they can be independent without a specific sort of personality.
Yeah, that is a challenge, definitely. Anybody else for anything?
Yeah. I think one of the things for me that's going to be a challenge going forward is how people change their habits of behaving, because we've been stuck in this perpetual situation since March 2020, and you know it takes, I think they reckon on average 66 days to create a habit or something. So we've got lots of habits, you know, and you see this just walking in a supermarket and you see people looking at you like you've got a big disease on you. And it's like, how are people going to change those habits, particularly when they're going back into the workplace and they learn that habit of trusting each other?
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, interesting.
And working, if they've been furloughed for ages.
Even more so. Yeah, I've been hearing people talking about boarding furloughed employees. Yeah, and I think actually just looking at what you were saying, Paul, with regards to onboarding new members, reboarding those who have been remote, and reboarding those who were furloughed. So just loads of change. Anything else before I share some stats and data and whatnot with you? No? Okay, some really good stuff there. So I will definitely whiz through these slides to give you some context, give you updated information about where do we sit now, what we're seeing, and then have a look at those particular things and more. Throw more in as we go. We're a small enough team that we can throw more in as we go. So let me share this. So can you see that?
Yeah.
Right. Okay, so the impact of COVID. I'm going to be specific here because we all know there's been an impact. So I think what's going to be more helpful is actually being a little bit more specific. Very specifically, anxiety levels have been super high, and we know that, highest ever recorded. And we know that because the Office of National Statistics would measure 4 things when it comes to our well-being: happiness, feeling that life is worthwhile, life satisfaction, and anxiety. Importantly, the first 3 have returned to normal. The one that hasn't is anxiety. And I'm going to say that I think that, Colleen, is because things are uncertain. We still don't know. But it's not been an even split, but we'll come on to that in a minute. Low happiness did double, but it has roughly gone back to normal. One of the biggest concerns across all population groups was this inability to save, not having that predictability of being able to save for the future. And financial worries are one of the key drivers of poor well-being in the workplace. So therefore, that's also then really important when it comes to low-income workers. So if you've got low-income workers and they're young, then their inability to save and the uncertainty, the anxiety is one big storm. So they are the most vulnerable. Renters, most likely to feel negative, and young people. And for me, I think this is probably one of the really important ones. Having a look at your workforce and saying, right, how old are they? It's 16 to 24-year-olds who have been the most affected by the mental ill health consequences of the pandemic. And 48% reporting loneliness. That is actually really quite high. And those are recent figures, as you can see, because it goes up to March 21. Okay, so just to dig a little bit deeper on this age profile, this is representing those who had a dedicated workspace and those who didn't and were probably working from a kitchen table or a sofa. So you can see in yellow, your 18 to 24-year-olds are those who have probably been working on a sofa or a kitchen table, compared with those who are older. And why is that so important, apart from obviously muscular, skeletal, physical health? You've actually got quite a disparity between how they feel and how they've been able to work. So this idea of motivation, no distractions, separation of work and home life. But it's worth saying that even these people with this dedicated workspace over time have started to feel elements of loneliness as a result of the lack of connection with colleagues. And then those without this home office, no separation between work and home life, missing the interactions in work. And I think if you think back to when you were between 18 and 24, not saying that any of you are not necessarily still in that age group, but you know, it really was all about relationships at work. And that is one of the key drivers, one of the 5 key drivers, which come on to in a minute, for well-being in the workplace, the fact that we have relationships with people in the workplace. So some significant results there for what it's felt like for people. And when there's uncertainty about, is this going to end? Am I going to go back into the office, or when, or for how many days a week? This is just preying on people's insecurity even more so. So what else? Oh yeah, 5 drivers. So there are 5 key drivers. We know this from a global study of well-being. The most important of the 5 key drivers is relationships. So that is the one that was probably impacted the most when it came to lockdown. And I know that some offices you need to book to go into the office. Some people are doing 1 day a week. Some people are still not back in the office. And some companies are talking about never going back to the office at all. So the relationship aspect, how do we solve that need for relationship and connection in a hybrid world? Very, very difficult. My favorite piece of evidence is the connection between productivity and well-being. So this is why it's so important. We're not just doing this because it's the right thing to do, because of course it is. It's a responsibility of every business. But actually, it makes sense for productivity and therefore your bottom line. So this piece of research was done by Jan de Neer from Oxford Research Centre in BT call centres. 1.8 million call centre workers, tracking their happiness ratings over a 6-month period. They saw an increase in sales of 13% when there was a differential between unhappy and very happy. So we know it works and we know it's important, and that alone creates the business case for it. So there is that unevenness with who this is affecting the most, and it does seem to be that it is the younger generation, so the millennials. 59% of millennials are telling us that they've left a job because of mental health reasons. I mean, it still does go higher than that in terms of the age brackets. 30% of Gen X have left a role, in part at least, to mental health reasons. So it's having a massive impact on staff turnover as well as productivity. So just how much is this relationships driver important? Enormous. And I say this because this really needs to become a focus when you're looking at trying to improve well-being. So again, Jan Denev, Oxford Research Centre, because he's done a lot of work into workplace well-being. We know that the share of satisfaction when it comes to job satisfaction, 86% is the relationship we're having with our manager. So we know interpersonal relationships is important, but it's the relationship we're having with management that is the most significant factor when it comes to job satisfaction. So, okay, so we know that. We know we need to focus on the line manager. But where are your line managers in general when it comes to their own well-being across the lifespan? Whereabouts are they? So this inverted bell curve is saying that when people are around about 45, 55, that's when their well-being is at its absolute lowest. So sorry, not great news. Gets better when we retire. But the key message here for me is your line managers are critical to the well-being of their employees, but actually they're probably the ones that need the most amount of support for their well-being as well. So this focus on line managers is really, really important if we're going to get well-being right. So just there are certain factors when it comes to well-being, again, evidence-driven, that if you follow these factors, I'm not going to cover all of them, there's lots to cover in each one of them, so we'll just focus on one. But if we look at these factors, these are the ones that are going to ensure a more successful, a more impactful well-being program. So very, very briefly, I'll come back to communication, but commitment is obviously leading from the top, committing to a program, it not just being a one-hit wonder. It's not just for Mental Health Awareness Week starting on the 10th of May. It's an ongoing program of well-being being integrated into the business. Consistency is about the fact that it actually does fit with the rest of the organization. We don't have a well-being program and initiatives that actually don't fit with what the business policies might be, for example. So we want you to feel good, but you're only going to get one break a day. Or we want you to feel good in your role, but you've got a bullying line manager. So consistency is really important. Coherence. So this again is it integrated into the entire business? Is it part of every area of the business? My goodness me, we can't believe in our breakout rooms yet. So the communication bit is the one that's really, really important for me. And that is the one that I would focus on when it comes to your line managers. So there's something that I run. It's an immersive training experience for line managers to help them have that supportive conversation. So that's something you can find more about if you want.
I was stopped in full flow. I'm just devastated.
Yeah, but I got your statement, so I'm going to share that.
I'm right with you there, Anthony. I was totally in my line there.
In the flow. No, it's some really good discussions, and I think it's
that was great.
It's great to kind of do these sessions, and unfortunately they are only an hour long, so try and kind of get as much value in as much as we can. But if there are conversations that are starting to flow with people, then definitely encourage you all to book one-to-one kind of sessions from here and share that best practice and share that experience with each other so that we can start building that continued community. But hopefully some really good discussions that happened across the patch in those short, sharp value sessions. What we're going to do now is we're going to move people into one-to-one sessions. So opportunity now, I suppose, to kind of get to know the person in your room in a little bit more detail, understand some of their challenges.
It's like speed dating.
It kind of is, exactly, Anthony. That's the vibe that we're looking for. So we're going to give 10 minutes to have a bit of a conversation around your experiences over the last 12 months. What's worked, what's not worked? What have you taken from the last 15 months that's particularly resonated? And then we'll come back into the final section of today's session and have a little bit of a Q&A. So if there's questions that have come up from the panel sessions that you've just been into, that you want to kind of share and you want to build on, that is a brilliant opportunity to build that into some of the discussion for later. So Sarah, I'm going to go for a green light. The pop-up will come up again, so I'll ask you to join your breakout, and then you should go into a session with at least one person. There might be, if we've got an odd number, there might be a second in there, but it's an opportunity to kind of take those conversations.
Hi, Spencer.
Hello, Eileen. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. How are you?
Good. I'm not bad. Thank you very much.
Good. So